Hello and welcome to Veterans Medals Workshop. I'm your host, Frank Foster, and today we have a really great show for the Vietnam veterans of the 5th Special Forces Group Airborne. We're going to take a look at the symbolism and heraldry behind their unit patch or shoulder sleeve insignia, or their unit crest or distinctive unit insignia, however you want to call it. We'll also take a look at a couple of very unique patches that they wore, and at the end, we'll take a look at the basic medals that every member of the 5th Special Forces Group Airborne would have earned in Vietnam. All right, let's go. The 5th Special Forces Group Airborne, known as the Legion Legionnaires, had its operational base at Nha Trang, and the group deployed throughout the 4 military regions within South Vietnam. And its operational detachments established in man camps at over 270 locations throughout South Vietnam, training and leading indigenous forces known as the Civilian Irregular Defense Group. Shown on the left is the shoulder sleeve insignia of the 5th Special Forces. In the center is the beret flash, and on your right is the distinctive unit insignia. So let's take a little closer look. The Special Forces Group Airborne shoulder sleeve insignia is a teal blue arrowhead with a yellow dagger, its blade surmounted by 3 yellow lightning flashes. On a tab placed just above the insignia, the word Airborne is in yellow letters on a black background. The arrowhead alludes to the American Indians' basic skills in which the Special Forces personnel are trained to a high degree. The dagger represents the unconventional nature of Special Forces operations, and the 3 lightning flashes, well, that represents their ability to strike rapidly by air, water, or land. The shoulder sleeve insignia was originally approved in August of 1955, and the Airborne tab was added in November of 1958. The 5th Special Forces Group's distinctive unit insignia is shown in the center. It's a silver-colored metal and enamel device about 1 1/8 high, and it consists of a pair of silver arrows crossed, pointed up, and surmounted at their junction by a silver dagger with a black handle. At the bottom is a Latin motto which translates, "From oppression we will liberate them." The insignia is the crossed arrow collar insignia from the 1st Special Force World War II, combined with the fighting knife, which is of a distinctive shape and pattern only issued to the 1st Special Service Force. To the right is the beret flash, and it was originally black with a white trim, but in Vietnam it was later added with the Vietnamese flag and a diagonal slash. For enlisted personnel, the distinctive unit insignia was mounted as shown on the beret flash, and for officers, their rank insignia was shown. And because you really want to know, the current Special Forces patch is shown to the right of the Vietnam-era 5th Special Forces patch. And it wouldn't be any fun if we didn't take a look at some of their special or unique patches. Starting in the upper left corner is the 5th Special Forces Group Blazer patch. If you can believe that, well, yes, you can. And then in the center is the 5th Special Forces Group with the 5 overlaying the distinctive unit insignia. And then to the right of that is the 5th Special Forces Group Black Ops insignia. Then going down to the bottom row, starting on your left, was the Mike Force. That's a really unique insignia. And then the Airborne Mike Force, using a little bit of a dragon and the diagonal of the Vietnamese flag. And next is the famous or infamous MAC V SOG, or Special Operations Group patch. And then finally on your right, a very unique patch, the Song Tay Raiders patch. I just thought you'd like to see those 5th Special Forces unique patches. Time out, please. If you're enjoying this show, please subscribe. It will keep us on the air. Thank you. I have to say up front that the 5th Special Forces Group was one of the most decorated units in all of Vietnam, and very seldom did a PFC come into the unit. There was a minimum of respect for, and most of the troops were non-commissioned officers. But if you were first arriving in Vietnam with no other decorations, this is what you would have: your parachute badge and the National Defense Service Medal. After 30 days in Vietnam, a Special Forces soldier would be awarded the Vietnamese Service Medal And after 30 days in country, they probably had already qualified for the Combat Infantryman's Badge, if they weren't a medic, and I'll talk to that a little later. After 6 months in Vietnam, the Special Forces soldier would be authorized the South Vietnamese Campaign Medal, and after 6 months in country, they may have accumulated some other awards. So after a year in Vietnam, a 5th Special Forces veteran would have a basic display case like this. It would have his shoulder sleeve insignia in the center, then his branch insignia, U.S. and crossed infantry rifles. There was not a Special Forces crossed arrow insignia yet authorized. He would have his unit crest or distinctive unit insignia flanking his combat infantry badge, and then his parachute badge with the flash for the 5th Special Forces behind it. I'm assuming that almost every 5th Special Forces enlisted man would have a good conduct medal, and most probably 4 or more campaign stars. At the bottom of the case, just over the nameplate, would be the Republic of Vietnam Gallantry Cross Unit citation, which every member of the 5th Special Forces would have been authorized. Of course, you can see his marksmanship badges left and right of his nameplate. All of the Special Forces guys were well qualified, with individual weapons, of course. Well, this display case represents a 5th Special Forces veteran and what might be more typical for a non-commissioned officer. Starting in the upper left-hand corner is his beret flash with his distinctive unit insignia mounted on it, and over that his Ranger tab. In the center is his combat infantry badge and his senior parachutist badge, which indicate he's more than a novice jumper. Then his shoulder sleeve insignia over on the right. Looking at his medals, you see the Purple Heart, the Army Commendation Medal, the Good Conduct Medal, the National Defense, his Vietnam Service Medal with campaign stars, the Vietnamese Honor Medal, which he probably was presented by working with Vietnamese forces, and the Vietnamese Campaign Medal. In the lower left corner is his Pathfinder badge to indicate that he's also qualified as a Pathfinder. In the lower center is the Vietnamese Ranger badge, and then on the right is the South Vietnamese Special Forces Parachute badge, which almost all of the Special Forces members earned in Vietnam. I want to take a minute here and take a look at some of the skill and qualification badges that many of the Special Forces veterans of the 5th Special Forces in Vietnam would have. Starting at the upper left corner is the basic parachute badge, the senior parachute badge, or the master parachute badge, colloquially referred to as the master blaster. If, for example, they had had a combat jump during their tour in Vietnam, they would have a small bronze star in the center of the parachute. On the second line is the South Vietnamese Army Parachute Badge, but most of the Special Forces members were qualified with the South Vietnamese Special Forces Parachute Badge, shown to the right of the Army Parachute Badge. And just to the right of the Vietnamese Special Forces Parachute Badge is the Vietnamese Ranger Qualification Badge. At the very bottom is the Parachute Badge Flash for the 5th Special Forces during the Vietnam period, and on the right is the current flash of the 5th Special Forces. Special Forces soldiers were trained in almost every military discipline, so it would not be unusual to see them with a combat medical badge for those with medical training, or those in demolition to have the explosive ordnance disposal badge. And then, not surprising to see pathfinders, scuba divers, or even the jungle expert tab, which didn't stay around very long, but they could have had one. And I couldn't resist putting up the marksmanship badges just to make the point that the Special Forces soldiers were probably qualified with more of these attachments than any of us soldiers in the Army. Both rifle, pistol, rocket launchers, submachine guns, automatic rifles, grenades. They knew their weapons. And even though we didn't show it on the display case, every Special Forces soldier would have at least 2 overseas bars for a year's service in Vietnam that went on the right sleeve, and many of them would have multiple service stripes for reenlistment, as shown on the left sleeve. So in a quick summary, the basic load for every 5th Special Forces veteran of the Vietnam War would be at least the National Defense Service Medal, the U.S. Vietnam Service Medal, and the Vietnam Campaign Medal, as well as the RBN Gallantry Cross Unit Citation. Almost all the enlisted personnel will have the Good Conduct Medal, and I can assure you that the individual 5th Special Forces veteran from Vietnam War would have many other decorations because, as I mentioned before, the 5th Special Forces Group in Vietnam was one of the most decorated units in the Army during that period. Thanks for watching today for our show on the 5th Special Forces Group Airborne in Vietnam, their unit patch and their distinctive unit insignia. All of the information today came from my newest book, Medals, Badges, and Insignia of the U.S. Army in Vietnam. So you'll find it on Amazon. I think you'll enjoy it. All right, see you next time on Veterans Medals Workshop. If you would like more information on United States military awards for the Army, Navy, Air Force, Marines, or Coast Guard, well, even the Merchant Marine, check out our books on Amazon.